There are encounters that seem written in the stars. Two souls recognize each other in a glance, as if they've known one another for millennia. It isn't just chemistry or coincidence, but something far deeper, a silent dance between the collective unconscious and destiny, where archetypal forces shape the reunion of two beings truly meant for each other. In this video, we will dive into the depths of Jungian psychology to understand how what we call a soulmate can be seen not merely as romance, but as an individuation process guided by a higher intelligence that aligns each person's path at precisely the right moment. True love is no accident, it's a summons of the soul. If you feel you're on the path to finding someone who resonates with the deepest part of your being, write in the comments, "I'm ready to recognize whom my soul already loves." Carl Jung's analytical psychology offers us a unique lens for understanding the encounters that transform the soul. When we speak of a soulmate, we're not dealing only with an idealized romance, but with a profound journey of individuation, the process by which each individual becomes who they truly are, integrating all parts of the psyche, including those that have been repressed, denied, or projected onto others. According to Jung, our most significant relationships serve as symbolic mirrors. Through them, we project unconscious aspects of ourselves, especially via the archetypes of the Anima and animus, the inner feminine and masculine images residing within everyone's psyche. Meeting someone we perceive as a soulmate often triggers a powerful emotional impact because that person activates these inner archetypes. In other words, we recognize not just the other, but a forgotten part of ourselves. Jung asserted that the union of two truly aligned individuals occurs when both have begun to integrate their shadow, that hidden, denied side of personality, and are aware of their own projections. At that point, love transforms from an unconscious desire into a genuine spiritual connection. Symbolically, this divine alignment between two souls is possible when both are already walking toward wholeness, and the self, the organizing center of the psyche, guides their reunion. What seems like divine intervention is, in fact, a convergence of the personal unconscious, the collective unconscious, and the soul's perfect timing. God, in this context, acts as the symbolic intelligence directing the soul toward its destined experience. When two beings are ready, the universe doesn't merely allow their meeting, it invites it. Few recognize at first glance that the person they fall deeply in love with may actually be reflecting what remains unhealed within themselves. For Jung, intense attraction often arises from projecting one's own shadow, all that we refuse to accept in ourselves, but still lives in our psyche. The shadow, he explained, is not merely the negative side of personality. It also encompasses hidden potentials, rejected qualities, and truths that have been stifled throughout life. In romantic relationships, especially those that feel spiritual or predestined, encountering the shadow is inevitable. When someone evokes visceral emotions, whether enchantment, fear, or resistance, they are likely touching on aspects the psyche has kept hidden. That's why so many relationships begin with a sense of completeness and, over time, reveal deep conflicts. What draws us is often what we need to integrate, and the soulmate is no exception. In fact, they are one of the most powerful figures in confronting the shadow. Their symbolic role is not only to love, but also to provoke inner growth by confronting psychic truths. To truly love, Jung argued, is to be willing to see the other as they are, and even more, to see oneself through the reflection the other provides. Romantic love thus becomes fertile ground for self-knowledge, provided the individual accepts the discomfort needed to recognize their unconscious patterns. Without that awareness, projections take over. We idealize, expect, demand, and ultimately become disappointed. But with psychic maturity, we begin to understand that the other didn't come to complete us, but to mirror us. In this context, the romantic encounter transforms into a healing ritual. Dealing with the shadow evokes mixed feelings. We love and hate, draw close and push away, desire and reject. This inner movement mirrors the struggle between the persona, the social mask we wear to be accepted, and the shadow that yearns to be acknowledged. For souls truly destined for one another, this process intensifies. There is nowhere to hide for long. The other sees through all defenses. Their bond is less about comfort and more about truth. Passion becomes purification, and their relationship a profound mirror in which every gesture has the power to reveal forgotten parts of the soul. This is why so many destined love stories involve breakups, separations, and reunions. The psyche needs time to digest the revelations brought by the other. Often, before reunion is possible, each person must confront their shadow individually. Though painful, this period of separation is sacred. It marks the moment when projection ends and integration begins. Only then can the reunion be genuine, because it's no longer based on illusion, but on acceptance. Thus, the shadow is not an obstacle to true love. It is the path. When two souls learn to recognize and welcome their own shadows, their relationship becomes a space of mutual transformation. There's no need to control, change, or save the other. Instead, there is a profound commitment to self-knowledge and the freedom to be one's true self. It is here that love approaches the divine. It doesn't bind, it liberates. And that freedom is only possible when the shadow has been faced with courage and compassion. A soulmate, then, is not someone who comes to make us permanently happy. They are someone who awakens in us the possibility of being whole. And wholeness only emerges when every part of the psyche, including the darkest, is seen, acknowledged, and integrated. Jung teaches us that a true love encounter happens when we are already in the process of individuation, when we stop seeking in another what we must find within ourselves. Love ceases to be a lack and becomes a meeting of two wholenesses that recognize each other not only by their light, but by the shadows they can sustain together. At the heart of Jungian psychology lies a crucial concept for understanding deep, true love, the presence of the inner feminine and masculine, which Jung called the Anima and animus. These archetypal figures dwell in everyone's psyche, regardless of gender. The anima represents the inner feminine in the man, the animus, the inner masculine in the woman. Unconsciously, these images shape our affections, our ideals, and often our romantic choices. When we talk about finding someone who seems destined, we must understand that part of what we see in the other is an activation of these inner figures. A relationship with a soulmate often triggers strong identification with these archetypal images. A man in love projects his anima onto his partner, seeing in her everything his soul longs for: sensitivity, intuition, beauty, transcendence. A woman projects her animus onto her partner, perceiving firmness, direction, wisdom, and spiritual strength. These projections create an illusion of completeness, as if we've finally found the missing piece. But Jung warns that until these qualities are integrated internally, the relationship remains vulnerable to frustration. The other is neither our anima nor our animus. They simply reflect what we still need to cultivate within ourselves. In this context, the soul's journey requires a decisive step, recognizing that what we love in the other must be developed internally. A man who sees inspiration and beauty in his partner needs to cultivate those qualities within himself, rescuing his sensitivity, empathy, and capacity for emotional connection. A woman who admires her partner's clarity and direction must strengthen her own inner structure, decision-making ability, and rational and spiritual strength. Only when these energies are welcomed and balanced internally does the encounter with the other become genuine and lasting. Thus, the anima and animus are not mere internal constructs, but bridges to individuation. Every meaningful relationship is, in some measure, an opportunity to integrate these complementary forces. Jung shows us that humans are inherently dual, carrying both masculine and feminine within. Repressing one polarity creates imbalance, which then manifests in relationships. A man disconnected from his anima tends to become cold, overly rational, emotionally illiterate. A woman disconnected from her animus often becomes passive, insecure, and dependent. When these aspects are activated by someone who deeply touches our soul, we have a chance to restore internal balance. What makes meeting a soulmate so powerful is precisely that it provokes this integration with intensity. You cannot truly love someone without activating your own inner polarity. Love demands surrender and strength, sensitivity and structure, receptivity and discernment. When both individuals are conscious of their anima and animus, their relationship becomes a sacred field where masculine and feminine dance together, not as opposites in conflict, but as complementary forces serving wholeness. This process, however, requires vigilance. Projections don't vanish on their own. Self-knowledge, reflection, and courage are necessary to reclaim from the other what belongs within. Jung suggests that instead of seeking in our partner what we lack, we should ask, what does this person awaken in me that I need to cultivate myself? That question is the turning point that transforms romantic love into conscious love, and it's in this space that destined souls can flourish. When two people have integrated their internal opposites to some degree, love stops being dependency and becomes communion. Each sees in the other not the missing half, but a reflection of the wholeness being built. At that level, the relationship transcends traditional romance and nears the sacred. There's no power struggle, no unconscious demands, only presence, truth, and commitment to a mutual journey of evolution. The reunion of souls in this scenario mirrors a profound psychic process. God, as symbol of the self, orchestrates this dance of integration. The other is indeed a mirror, but also a teacher, a spiritual ally. When Anima and Animus already converse harmoniously within each person, the meeting ceases to be chaos and becomes communion, a communion not explained by logic but lived with the entire soul. Central to Carl Jung's analytical psychology is the concept of the self, the psychic instance representing the axis of wholeness, the union point of conscious and unconscious. The self is more than just the sum of the ego and its experiences. It is latent totality, the ultimate potential for purpose and realization. When we talk about the meeting of destined souls, we cannot omit the self's central role. It, invisibly and symbolically, organizes the experiences pushing us toward individuation, often manifesting through deep bonds that defy logic yet resonate with the soul. The self doesn't operate only on a personal level. It's also connected to the collective unconscious, the psyche's layer that shares universal contents, archetypal images, myths, and symbols common to all humanity. When two souls ready to meet finally cross paths, it isn't only an individual coincidence. It's the unfolding of a collective archetypal movement that transcends the ego's boundaries. It's as though something greater, the universal psyche, calls these two consciousnesses to reunite at a precise moment. That summons doesn't come from the rational mind, but from a force residing in the deep unconscious. The self works through signs, intuitions, dreams, and impulses that may seem illogical, but carry powerful symbolic meaning. Many report feeling an inner restlessness before meeting someone special, a sense that something is coming, or even dreaming of unknown figures who later resemble the partner who appears. These phenomena are expressions of the self, guiding the psyche toward the reunion with what is essential for the soul's development. This kind of connection is not without challenges. On the contrary, the self often leads us into relationships that destabilize us, pulling us out of our comfort zones, precisely because the aim is not emotional security but transformation. In this context, the other does more than offer love. They awaken us. True love, from a Jungian perspective, is a catalyst for individuation. It forces us to face what we avoid, question what we once took for granted, and be reborn with a new awareness of who we really are. On the level of the collective unconscious, the archetype of the soulmate corresponds to the sacred union, the alchemical marriage of masculine and feminine, spirit and matter, heaven and earth. When two individuals are prepared for this union, their meetings become living symbols of that archetype. They come to represent in their own love experience a collective truth, a myth unfolding in real time. Such relationships hold symbolic power so profound that they affect not only the individuals, but also their surroundings, as though the psychic field reorganizes around them to make room for something carrying universal meaning. The self, as organizer of wholeness, acts subtly and often disruptively. It may delay meetings, provoke temporary separations, lead people down seemingly divergent paths, all to ensure that, at the right moment, both are ready to sustain what the reunion demands. Because loving another is not enough, you must also be prepared to face what that love will reveal. The self doesn't pursue immediate pleasure, it seeks the soul's fulfillment, and that fulfillment is only possible when we cease living by the ego's expectations and start aligning with the deeper symbolism of our existence. A soulmate is not a reward for good behavior, nor compensation for our lacks. They are a summons from the self to become who we truly are. When they appear, they don't come to complete us. They come to confirm a truth already pulsating within, that the most powerful love is the one that brings us closer to our essence. The collective unconscious, meanwhile, provides the archetypes and myths shaping this type of connection. The symbolic language of true love isn't built on logic, but on universal images. The reunion after long journeys, love enduring time, the union of opposites. When we live a relationship echoing these myths, We become living characters in an ancestral narrative. That's what gives true love its depth. It belongs not only to the present, but resonates with something eternal. There are encounters that pierce us with the force of an omen. We feel as if everything we've lived until that moment was preparation for that instant. No rational explanation suffices, only a profound recognition, as if something within us whispers, "This is it." Jung called this synchronicity, a meaningful coincidence that can't be explained by causality, but carries deep significance. When we speak of souls truly destined for each other, synchronicity becomes the language by which the universe whispers that the soul's time has come. Synchronicity manifests subtly yet powerfully. A recurring dream, a song playing at just the right moment, an apparently random encounter in an unfamiliar city, a sequence of signs pointing towards someone we barely knew existed. For Jung, these events are no mere chance. They indicate that the unconscious aligns with the universe's flow. It's as though the soul knows before the mind that something is coming, and when two souls are ready, psychological time bends towards symbolic time, kairos, the sacred moment when everything makes sense. Yet this soul time does not heed the ego's urgencies. It respects the pace of inner maturation. Often destiny thwarts premature meetings, not out of cruelty, but wisdom. A soulmate may enter our lives when we're not yet ready to sustain them. True love is not light when it arrives too soon. It requires internal structure, awareness, and surrender. Thus, time prepares both paths. Separations, ruptures, long pauses, all part of a hidden process refining the psyche. Nothing is random when it comes to soul encounters. Jung saw destiny not as a fixed path, but as the psyche's deep tendency toward wholeness. What we call destiny can be understood as the soul's movement toward its essential truth. In this movement, reuniting with someone who reveals that truth may feel predestined, and in a way it is, but not by an external script. Jungian destiny arises from within. It is the symbolic unfolding of that latent truth in the unconscious. And when we're ready to live it, the universe conspires through synchronicity. That's why true love stories often carry an air of mystery. People sense they've known each other before, even without ever meeting. Déjà vu feelings, strong intuitions, inexplicable currents drawing them together. These experiences signal that the collective unconscious works through symbols, weaving together two paths that once seemed separate. The soul recognizes before the mind comprehends. That recognition is a call to something greater than mere romance. It's the beginning of a joint journey of individuation. Understanding synchronicity as an instrument of the self helps us trust life's symbolic intelligence. When we stop controlling and start observing signs with humility, we see that everything cooperates in our awakening. That chance meeting, that unexpected call, that seemingly random choice, all can be the soul's invitation to follow the path of conscious love. Even misalignments play their part. Sometimes, soul time demands silence, withdrawal, distance. But if the bond is true, it endures, rooted in a deeper realm than the immediate. In this sense, faith becomes a powerful psychic tool, not blind faith, but faith born of listening to life's symbolism. Trusting that soul time differs from ego time is an act of surrender to the unconscious's wisdom. And that surrender allows true love to bloom, even after years of waiting, after pain and transformation. The reunion of soulmates is less about searching and more about readiness. When both align with their individuation paths, destiny never fails. It simply waits for the right moment. Thus, synchronicity, destiny, and soul time are not isolated mystical ideas. They are symbolic expressions of the individuation process. When two people who have walked with themselves meet, there is silence, recognition, and peace. Not because everything will be easy, but because love no longer needs to prove anything. It just is. And the universe, in its silent language, confirms, now is the time. True love doesn't happen by chance. It's built in the invisible, woven by powerful psychic forces operating far beyond consciousness. Carl Jung invites us to see relationships not as mere romantic encounters, but as symbolic paths of individuation, where the other acts as mirror, guide, and revealer of our hidden selves. When we're willing to face our shadow, integrate our internal polarities, and trust the soul's sacred timing, we make room for the self to lead us into connections resonating with our most authentic destiny. The reunion of truly destined souls is not the end of a quest. but the beginning of a profound journey of transformation. It is when two wholenesses recognize and walk together, not to complete one another, but to expand all they already are. And it is in that meeting that the divine manifests, not as an external miracle, but as an internal truth finally revealed. If this content has touched you in some way, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Also, watch the next video appearing on the screen. It may be the next step on your path to self-knowledge. The love that transforms begins within. Walk boldly.